Hi, my name is Jillian Vandecruz, and I am here doing a vlog script on the book Until I Am Free. Until I Am Free is a compelling biography and social commentary written by historian Keisha N. Blain that explores the life and legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, a fearless black woman, activist in the American civil rights movement, born into poverty and relentless racism in Mississippi. Hamer rose to become a powerful voice for voting rights, economic justice, and human dignity in the 1960s. Blain's work states Hamer's story within the political and social turmoil of her time, while connecting her enduring message to contemporary struggles for racial and social justice. The book, Until I Am Free, challenges readers to recognize the ongoing fight against systemic oppression and the power of collective liberation. Who wrote the book? What was their background? The book Until I Am Free, Fannie Lou Hamer, Enduring Message to America was written by Keisha N. Blain, a distinguished historian and professor specializing in African studies and history at Brown University. Blain is recognized for her extensive focus on Black history, social justice, and political activism, and she has received prestigious fellowships such as the Guggenheim Fellowship. Her work is characterized by a commitment to unearthing underrepresented Black voices, particularly those of Black women, and connecting historical struggles to contemporary issues. What was the context in which the book was written? What were the major historical events happening at the time? I'm providing a description of the time, place, and circumstances in which the author produced the text. Blain wrote this book amid the 21st century resurgence of movements for racial justice, including Black Lives Matter and increasing national debates around voter suppression, systemic racism, and police violence. The broader historical context of the book focuses on the mid-20th century civil rights movement, such as the Jim Crow era South, where Black Americans endured legalized segregation and widespread disenfranchisement. Fannie Lou Hamer, the central figure of the book, was an activist in this period, especially known for her courageous work in Mississippi, fighting for Black voting rights as part of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. The book emerges from a period where historians and activists are re-examining civil rights history through the lens of intersectionality, emphasizing the roles of Black women whose contributions were often marginalized. What is the overall storyline of the book? What general information was provided in the work? Until I'm Free chronicles the life of Fannie Lou Hamer, born into a poor sharecropping family as the youngest of 20 children in Mississippi. The book traces her harsh upbringing under systemic racial and economic oppression, her brutal experiences with voter suppression, and her rise as a powerful grassroots organizer and public speaker. It outlines how Hamer became a key figure in the fight for civil rights through her leadership in the SNCC and the Freedom Democratic Party, advocating not just for voting rights but also economic justice, gender equality, and human rights. Blain incorporates Hamer's speeches, letters, and interviews to illustrate her evolving political thoughts and the way she challenged both white supremacy and patriarchal structures. The biography situates Ammer's narrative within broader struggles for liberation and human dignity in America. What are some of the book highlights? Most interesting or touching passages. Some of the most touching highlights include Ammer stirring testimony at the 1964 Democratic Convention, where she publicly exposed the violence and injustice Black voters faced in Mississippi. Another moving section in Ammer's articulation of her philosophy of collective freedom encapsulated in the phrase, "Nobody's free until everybody's free," which has become an enduring slogan for social justice activists. Blaine highlights how Ammer's personal resilience, humor, and faith, or social justice, or faith, resilience, humor, and faith became integral to her activism and underscores her influence on modern Black feminist thought. The book also includes touching recollections of Ammer's relationship with other activists and the sacrifices she made, emphasizing the emotional and physical toil of civil rights work. What are some of the text's shortcomings, silences, or omission? While Until I Am Free thoroughly celebrates Fannie Lou Ammer's public life and legacy as a pioneering civil rights and women's rights activist, several critics have noted that it offers comparatively less explorative of her private life, or family dynamics, or the internal conflicts that shaped her as a person. The book focuses primarily on her activism and political vision, which means that aspects such as her emotional struggles, relationships with family members, and more intimate personal experiences receive limited attention. This narrower focus leaves readers wanting a more refined, humanized characterization that is closer to the depth of her persona off stage. Additionally, the book does not deeply engage with critiques of Ammer's strategies or the political alliances she formed. Although Ammer was a formidable figure who rejected compromise and being offered handouts, famously challenges the Democratic Party at the 1964 convention. The book does not extensively address debates within the civil rights movement about tactics, about leadership conflicts, or ideological divisions. A deeper understanding of these internal challenges could have enriched the discussion of her activism, strength, and limitation. The book also tends to focus on Ammer's perspective without offering much attention to alternative viewpoints within the civil rights movement, or from those who oppose her ideologically or politically. This result is a more celebratory tone that, while inspiring, could limit the scope of historical debate, including dissenting or diverse perspective. Much might help readers appreciate the full complexity of the movement's dynamics and the contested nature of social change at the time. How might some of the information or sentiments the author covered in the work connect to issues we face in modern times? Are there alternative perspectives to the book's main idea that readers should consider? Yes, Keisha N. Blaine, Until I'm Free, powerfully connects Fannie Lou Hamer's relentless fight against voter suppression, economic injustice, and systemic racism to pressing issues that persist in modern America. Hamer's activism took place in a context where Black people in Mississippi face brutal disenfranchisement, poverty, and state sanctioned violence. Today, many of these struggles remain relevant. For example, ongoing voter ID laws and other tactics that limit voting access echo the barrier Hamer worked to dismantle. Likewise, contemporary police brutality and racial bias imprisonment highlight state violence against which Hamer and her fellow civil rights activists struggled to eliminate. Racial disparities in housing, economic inequality, and opportunities for health care and jobs continue to increase, highlighting the structural disadvantage against which Hamer struggled. Blaine also highlights the ideological aspects of group freedom practiced through Hamer's legendary phrase, "Nobody's free until everybody's free," as an example that challenges contemporary social injustice activism to adopt an intersectional, comprehensive approach with the goal of ending intersecting moments of oppression on racial, gender, class, and other levels. This strategy encourages modern-day activists to present anti-racist movement as being part of human rights causes and campaigns for economic justice that are universal in scope. Critics of the book's main argument focus on the controversy of social movement. For example, critics argue that civil rights methods were as effective as they had flaws and more stringent encounter methods were required. Other criticism focused on coalition movement building between political pragmatism and radicalism. There it is argued whether structural or incrementally change should be the one to guide change. These criticisms show us the richness and scope of social justice movement activism strategies and caution us away from simplifying activism into one explanation. In addition, although Blaine idolizes Hamer's opposition to gradualism and compromise, such as when Hamer dismissed token political representation in the 1964 Democratic National Convention, there are concerns about the complexity of upholding radical reform under institutionalized politics. Consideration of such diverse perceptions enriches understanding of social movement and incites critical thinking about the continuous quest for equality. Does the book addresses themes of change or continuity over time, cause and effect? Yes. Until I'm Free recognizes continuity and change over time, revealing how the systemic repression of Fannie Lou Hamer during the 1960s did not remain, but rather shifted and carried on in today's time. The book recognizes the extent to which racism structures, disenfranchisement, and economic inequalities Hamer endured continue to exist today in social and political institutions of our own era. For instance, Blaine makes direct cause and effect links among discrimination laws, social public opinions, community reactions, and political outcomes. Mississippi repressive state atrocities and vote suppressing laws provoked not only grassroots pressure within the domestic polity, but also national civil rights movement that acted against political institutions with the aim of advancing reform. Therefore, Amherst's activism was proof of how individual injustice, like her beating and arrest for attempting to register to vote, was a unified element that acted as a catalyst to provoke other individuals to direct attention towards broader movement towards justice. In addition, the book outlines the way in which Amherst's activism planted helpful intellectual and organizational seeds that fruited later into human rights and feminist movement, or called for solidarity in social justice struggles, like our articulations that nobody's free until everybody is free, unites past and present into a brand of freedom struggle. It works into trying to give space to both change over time as well as continuity of struggle within the horizon of oppression, thus rendering the book an observation of how change is strenuous and continuous. What was the overall impact of the work? Did it signal a historical or ideological turning point? Did it expose readers to new and important perspectives? Did it help turn the tide of a conflict? Until I'm Free is a significant ideological turning point in civil rights, historiography, and social justice discourse by centering the intellectual and activist legacy of a Black woman who has historically been marginalized in dominant civil rights narrative. By placing Fannie Lou Hamer, a disabled Black working poor woman and activist, at the center, the book opens up the history record beyond famous great men in an effort to bring visibility to Black women's enormous leadership and intellectual work in justice movement. Blaine's book introduces readers to major concepts including collective liberation, Black feminist theory, and grassroots organizing, thus highlighting how Amherst organizing courage called out racial, gender, and economic injustice. Pushing definitions of freedom and justice. It calls on readers today to value the diversity and intersectionality of social movement, deepening understanding of struggles of the past and present. The book also extends Amherst's activism into the modern era by responding to contemporary controversy regarding race, democracy, and human rights. In addition, has sought to challenge the generations to come to think of activism as complex and multifaceted, striving to cement the need for grassroots activism, although it cannot on its own dismantle the legacy of previous movements. Until I'm Free seeks to become part of the change by reworking collective memory of the civil rights and allowing today's movement to draw from Amherst's global message. In conclusion, Until I Am Free offers a revision of civil rights history, though true and in Fannie Lou Hamer's life, and how our human work in Black voting rights, women's equality, and human In conclusion, Until I Am Free offers a revision of civil rights history, thorough and in Fannie Lou Hamer's life, and how our human rights work in Black voting rights, women equality, and human rights continue to have enduring effects after her death. Through argument and closing reading, Blaine reveals the structural continuities of oppression and the need for activism based on Amherst's faith that Nobody's free until everybody's free. The book not only adds to the lengthy historical record through focus on a black woman's intellectual and activist work, but also compels readers to take up issues of ongoing social justice. It is its relevance to the race, democracy, and equality discourse of today that renders it as an inciting ideological and historical text. Racism and police violence. The broader historical context of the book focuses on the mid-20s civil century movement, such as the Jim Crow era South, where black Americans endured some of the most touching highlights include Amherst's stirring testimony at the 1964 Democratic National Convention, where she publicly exposed the violence and injustice black voters faced in Mississippi. Another moving section in Amherst's articulation of her philosophy of collective freedom encapsulated in the phrase, "Nobody's free until everybody's free," which has become an enduring slogan for social justice activists.